Hey everybody, welcome back. This is going to be lessons 3 and 4 of the JavaScript and graphics unit. So we're going to get started with the user input, lesson 3. Go through these slides right here, talk a little bit about what we're doing, and I'll let you get to work. What we're working on right here is getting an answer from the user. So getting input. I want to ask them a question or tell them to enter something and then store their answer in a variable. So we have 3 types of user input. Well, actually 4. We'll learn about the 4th one here in just a minute. A read line means that I am reading in a string variable, so anything that can be put between quotes. A read int means I'm reading in an integer, so a whole number, positive or negative, but it has to be a whole number. A read float is for a floating point number, and that is any number that has a decimal in it. Okay, so let's look at the format of how we do this. So to read in a line, if I want to ask somebody their name, I would create a variable name. I would set that equal to read line with a capital L, and then ask them or tell them what it is that I'm looking for. So for this example, it says enter name. That is very clear, tells the user to enter their name. This read line, when it is run, a pop-up box appears on the screen. You type in the prompt. It gives you the prompt. You type in your answer. You hit OK, and then whatever you typed in is stored in the variable name, and then you can print that out. Okay, and we'll see an example of this very soon. Okay, a string is an ordered sequence of characters. Again, it is any characters, anything between quotation marks. Read int, here's a good example. When I ask somebody for their age, so var age equals read int, enter age, they would give you a whole number, and age is always a whole number. So that's a good example there. Reading flow, a cost, amount of money, what is your GPA, things like that. Those would be a read float, and whatever you type in with a decimal point would be stored in that variable. So let's look at a couple other ways this works out. So here in the example, you see var name equals read line name. So it asks you for your name, and then whatever I type in is going to go in name. Now what we've done is we have concatenated 2 strings together. And what that means, concatenate means you just added them together. So this is a piece of text that we are adding in. We put a plus sign, and then when we put our variable name, it will type out whatever it is that we asked for. I'm going to comment that out real quick, run this, and you can see now it is giving me a pop-up box, ask me for my name, Coach Floyd, and now it says name is Coach Floyd, and that comes from the print line right here. Okay, so using this concatenation with this plus sign going from text, full piece of text in quotes, to a plus sign and a variable. If I wanted to add something else, I could do another plus sign, and I could say is a great teacher. Now I can run that, Coach Floyd, and now you can see name is Coach Floyd is a great teacher. And all I've done is I've concatenated those things together. We'll talk more about strings later, but that is one way you can work it. Let's see, I'm going to comment that out. And we'll talk about comments also. So now here's a var age. I'm reading in a number, and then I'm going to say what that number is. So when I run this, my age is, I am 35. And now notice that there is no name, and that is because we did not put anything in. Okay, so because I commented this out. But if I run that, Coach Floyd, age 35. Okay. One last thing is a read Boolean. Alright, so this one looks a little bit different. We didn't see this in the slides. If you remember from yesterday, a Boolean is a true or false value. Okay? So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say over 30. Now remember, I can put numbers as long as the variable does not start with the numbers. So over 30 is going to ask, are you over 30? It's going to get a yes or no, and it's going to equate that to true or false, and then it's going to print that out. So one last time, Coach Floyd, 35, yes. And you can see here, are you old? Are you over 30? One last time. This was from a previous Coach Floyd, 35, 30. Up. Yes. There we go. See? It catches you if you mess up. All right. So that is reading in input. We are using this. We'll be using it for the next thing as well. So this is what your exercise is for this lesson. It wants you to prompt the user. So ask the user for their name and ask them what time you should meet for dinner. Now, these have to be two different reads. So you will need to create two variables, one that holds their name and asks them for their name, then another variable that asks them for the time. Two different variables, and then you will print this out exactly like this, except this will be a variable that's holding any name. So if I typed in Coach Floyd, it should say, hi Coach Floyd, I'll meet you at 5 o'clock. If I typed in Jeremy, it should say, hi Jeremy, I will meet you at 5 o'clock. So whatever it is the user gives you, that's what you type in. That's what gets shown. Okay. Also, this number should show the time. If I put 8, it should be an 8. If I put a 10, it should be a 10. Okay, so whatever it is, that's what you should be. So that is lesson 3. You can work on that here in a few minutes. I'm going to go ahead and talk about lesson 4. Excuse me. And this is basic math. So this is where we get into setting up equations for the computer to answer. So normally in math class we're worried about the final product, okay, the final answer. Well, in computer science we're not worried about that. We are setting up the problem so whatever the user puts in, the computer will give them the result. I don't know what all the numbers are going to be as I do this, okay? So as we go through here, we'll need to kind of focus on that. All right, so we can do basic math. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to read in two numbers. Create a variable with a first, read int first. It's going to ask the user, give me a number. Okay, then create a variable for the second, read int second, give a second number. Then I'm going to create a sum variable, and it's going to equal first plus second. So if I enter a 5 and a 4, my sum will print 9. Okay, basic math, and it's just as easy as that. Okay, so instead of actually you printing a 9, you're printing the sum that is holding that value. You're letting the computer do it for you. The plus sign is for addition, of course. The minus sign for subtraction. The star, which is shift 8, is multiplication. Division, which is the same, the forward slash right there. And the percent sign is the modulus. Now we will talk about the modulus in just a minute. The other 4 you should be well aware of. So here's some examples. Variables, doing variable math. If I did a print line with x plus y and x had a value and y had a numeric value, then it will actually do the math. Okay, so these right here are the answers that would print if you wrote this code. Okay. So basic math. You know, if you switch these numbers around, it would be a -4. It'll do all of the math for you. Okay. But what is this modulus? Okay, so a modulus means to do the division problem, get rid of the answer, and only show what the remainder would be. Okay, so 17 divided by 5 gives you a 3. All right, because that's what it is. But the modulus, so if you just do a division problem, it does integer division and it gives you a 3. But if you put the modulus, what it does is it does the division, it scraps that 3, throws it away, and gives you whatever was left over. And that is what you get. Now well, 90% of the time, 95% of the time maybe, that we're going to use this is to test to see if a number is even, and I will show you how to do that. That is the majority of using a modulus, is trying to figure out if something is evenly divisible. Because if you do a modulus problem and you get a 0 out, that tells you that the number is evenly divisible. Okay, so don't worry too much about the modulus yet. We will use it, but I'll show you exactly how to make that happen. Here's some shortcuts to add one to a counter. So a counter is just a variable that keeps count of something. You could say counter equals counter plus 1. So if counter started at 0, it would be counter equals 0 plus 1. Now it's 1. Well, now I'm going to reset the value to 1 plus 1. Now it's 2. Then it would be 2 plus 1. Now it's 3. A shortcut to that is to put a plus plus. Plus plus will increment the number by 1. So if this number was 150 and it did counter plus plus, it would be 151. If it was 5, it would go to 6. Okay, so every time that happens, it's just 1. Same thing with adding 1 and subtracting 1. 2 minus signs subtracts 1. So that's called an increment and decrement. It is also common to want to modify the current value. So if I want to add more than 1 to a value, so if I need to add 5 to x, okay, so maybe x already has 10 in it, okay, so 10 here, I'm trying to add 5 to it and then store the value back in here. Well, 10 plus 5 is 15, so now this is 15. If I ran this again, this would be 15. 15 plus 5, now I'm storing it to 20. 20 plus 5, and it keeps going from there. A shortcut for this is to do plus equals. Okay, so this says if x was 10 and y was 5, after this runs, x will now be 15. If this ran again, x would now be 20. If it ran again, x would now be 25, and so forth. Same thing down the board. Okay, so that's all that is saying. It can get a little confusing. However, once you start using it, it becomes much easier. Okay, let me show you a few things here. Here's the first run of that simple calculator. As I run it, if I give it a 5 and a 3, then it prints out 8. Now I can print out your total is plus. And what I've done is I've just added some context in here, so this prints and then it puts the 8. So as I run that, 5 and 7 this time, your total is 12. Okay, so just adding some context in here and concatenating it to our variable is very helpful, and you'll need to do that on most of these to pass the auto grader. Here's one that's a little bit tougher. Up here, it has a constant. Well, a constant is something new. A constant is a variable that is written in all capital letters with words separated with underscores. And what a constant is it is a variable with a value that does not change. The conversion rate for dollars to pounds, whenever this was created, was 0.6462. Okay, so that means that there are that many dollars in a pound. So what we've got to do is the program converts it, and so we need to ask the user how many dollars. We multiply the number of dollars times the conversion rate. Okay, so right here. And the reason we do that is, say you have a program that does a lot of conversions, that converts not only dollars to pounds, but other currencies to pounds. Well, those are different, or a better example, would be you have something that does a ton of different dollar amounts and changes them into pounds. Well, if I need to continue using 0.6462, if I do it this way where I create it one time as a constant and I use that constant name and say I'd have to do it 100 times. Well, say that something changes and the conversion rate changes. Well, the next time I run my program, I can change this number one time and my program is already fixed. Otherwise, I would have to go to each of the 100 equations and change that number. Makes it hard, long, and very possible that there's going to be an error. Okay. So the biggest thing is I'm just creating variables to hold everything. Let's look at one more. Here's an example of finding the number of creating equal groups and finding out how many people are left over, and that's what the modulus does. So you take the number of people, you mod it by the number of people per group. Say there were 17 people, groups of 2, it would leave you with 1 left over. Okay, so we're not going to use a modulus right now. We will come back to it. Okay, so for your exercises, you want to write, for the t-shirt shop, you want to write a program that asks the user how many t-shirts they want to buy. Then you'll print out the total cost. So you'll say, how many shirts do you want? You'll store their answer in a variable. You'll take that variable, you'll multiply it by the cost of a shirt, and then you'll print out the answer to them. Okay? So you should declare a constant at the top of your program and call it cost of shirt. Okay, so it will be looking for this. So when you open this program, up here, just go var capitals, cost of shirt. Now, one of the things when you're looking at your assignment right here, it says make it equal to $20. Well, one of the problems that we get is, I get this. But cost of shirt is supposed to be an integer so that you can do math. You can't do math right here because that $sign is not an integer. So all you need to do is just let it be the number. Okay, so do that, make sure you get that in there right, and then you can write your code in your start function. Okay, last one with the running. Sorry, there's an announcement going. What I'm going to do here is write a program that asks the user how far they ran in miles, and then how long it took them in minutes, and print out their speed in miles per hour. So if I just ask the user how far did you run, how many minutes, I have to do some conversions in there in order to get it into miles per hour. Okay, so an example is ask the user for miles, ask the user for minutes, convert the minutes to hours. So you need to figure out how, I need to make a variable for hours, I need to do the math, set it up to where it changes the minutes into hours. If you're not sure how to convert minutes to hours, look it up. Then I can find miles per hour and print out the result. And then I'd be done. Okay, so what I've done right here by writing this is what's called pseudocode. These are all in comments. Anytime you start a line with 2 forward slashes, you can see it turns red, and that means that the program will not run it. The pseudocode just kind of explains what you should do. Okay, so you can leave these comments in here. You can come, right here, and you can var miles, and you can start writing in there. Okay, this stuff won't run because it's commented out. All right. I hope that is a good intro into what you'll be doing. If you have any troubles, I will be posting. I'll be posting an office hours link. There's a page. I linked it to the front page of Canvas. Prior to 2 o'clock on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, I'll put a link. Office hours 2 to 3. Be glad to help you as you go through this. Also, keep sending me those messages, and if you need any help, reach out. Hope you have a good day.